start Jacob's presentation because he has his computer here and it's working. We have on the floor. Thank you, Jacob.
Hello. Alright, so good afternoon everyone, and I hope everyone had their lunch. Okay, so I will be presenting a work in progress. So I'm presenting establishing criteria for AI policy application for IT undergraduate students. My name is Jacob Catayok, and I'm the chairperson for the Information Systems Program at De La Salle College in Manila. Okay. Let's use this one. Okay, so just to give you a brief background of my institution, where I come from. So De La Salle College of St. Benilde, we are a school that offers non-traditional programs. No, so we have courses or programs on design and arts, architecture, music production. We also have programs on management and information technology. And we also offer hotel and restaurant and hospitality management. But my presentation here will focus more on the IT programs of the college. Okay, so what I wanted to share with you is that Benilde, our school, already embraces the use of AI or integrates AI tools in our curriculum. So we've started that this school year. However, the adoption of AI needs to vary across various levels of learning and assessment, because we also understand and we also know that just blindly following AI is not a really good thing to do, especially in terms of students' over-reliance in AI, possible over-reliance, or even academic dishonesty. So in this case, we implemented a 4-level AI use policy. So we don't have a single AI use policy in the college. So instead of having a standardized, institutionalized AI use policy, we divided it into 4 different levels. So for every course that we have, the faculty will have a choice to either implement no AI at all, or maybe they wanted to have limited AI assistance. So when we say limited AI assistance, the AI tools that they are going to use is limited to AI-assisted tools only. So they are not allowed to use GPTs like ChatGPT, Copilot, and so on. Or they may have significant AI assistance wherein, yes, they can use ChatGPT or Copilot, but they have to declare that they are using it, and they have to also provide the prompts that they use. So we are allowing them to use it, so we're not going to stop them, but they have to declare it properly. And lastly, for level 4, full AI involvement, so this is where students are expected to use AI at all times. So the AI is integrated as part of their learning and part of their assessment. Now, in determining which level of AI that our faculty is going to use for their courses, we declared 4 key considerations. The first being is that when we think about what AI policy we would like to use, we have to make sure that it is aligned with the learning outcomes of the course. Meaning, we are not restricting AI just for the sake of restricting it, or using AI just for the use of just for the sake of using it. We have to make sure to align the use of AI with our learning outcomes. Also, AI policy statements shall highlight the student's role in the learning process. So it's not about you just use AI to just generate content and then you submit it as such. If the students will have to use AI, they have to inform the instructor, or they have to declare it in their assessments, why they are using it, how it helped them, and what are the things that they use to in the AI GPT to help them or to help them arrive with whatever answers the AI has generated. Okay. Number 3, AI policy statement should encourage students to critically evaluate and refine AI outputs. Meaning, if they are going to use AI, like for example, there is this example where they are asked to generate art using AI. But even if AI has generated that art, there is still an input from the student. What were the inspirations? What were the criteria that that student set to the generator, which led that student to have that kind of output? And lastly, it should require students to disclose their AI usage and reflect on their experiences. So rather than just giving them or submitting it as it is, they should also come up with their reflection on using the tools, no? So to promote transparency and self-assessment. Now, here's the main problem. Okay, so we did discuss and we did publish this AI use policy, but there is a debate among faculty. What level of AI do I really need for my course? So how might we identify what is the right level of AI use policy that we will use for our courses, so that we ensure that the students will master the foundations and still benefit from AI where it matters? Now, because we don't want the students to rely too much on AI to the point that they will no longer learn their foundational concepts. But at the same time, we also want to utilize AI to help them learn. Okay? So with this problem, the objective of the study is to develop a comprehensive framework to guide the ethical and effective integration of AI tools, but focusing on IT-related programs in our institution to ensure that it is aligned with our educational objectives, institutional values, and the evolving technological landscape. Now, so we wanted to make sure that we are using AI the right way. No? So in doing that, so my framework for, or my methodology for doing this is, of course, to assess our existing policies and practices that we have in the college, and then to engage stakeholders, which means the faculty, the administrators, and the students, and then to develop an AI integration framework, which hopefully will be our guide to determine what level of AI does this particular course needs. Of course, since because of my current position in the school, and also because of time constraints, we only focus the study for the IT-related subjects or programs that we have. Although, hopefully, if we are successful, then we can already cascade this to the other programs within BINIG. And, of course, because we focus on the IT programs that we have, it may require further adaptation especially for non-IT programs. Okay. And of course, since we are still implementing the AI use policy in our institution, this is still set for validation. So we would like to validate the framework that we will be implementing. Okay, so first, of course, we did the data collection. So we collected all the existing documents that we have. We did a stakeholder interview, and we also did focus group discussions in our academic community. After that, we did an analysis of the documents, and I did a thematic analysis of the interviews and transcripts before we actually develop the set of criteria that will guide them to the appropriate AI usage levels in our courses, considering the learning outcomes, skill development, ethical implications, and other stakeholder perspectives. Then hopefully, after we have developed this, at a later time, we will have structured feedback sessions and triangulated stakeholder reviews to validate the framework with our administrators. Now, just to give you a brief background of the Philippine education setting. So, the Commission of Higher Education follows the outcomes-based education paradigm, wherein from the institution's vision, mission, and goals, we develop our institutional outcomes, or the outcomes of an ideal graduate. So we have those statements set per program. Then after that, we have program outcomes wherein each program will have their own outcomes that will make the student graduate, or that will be used to assess the attainment of the skills and the knowledge, skills, and values of the students. From there will be a curriculum map wherein we map out the program outcomes to the different courses, and then we come up with our course design, which is our syllabus. Now, this is an example of the graduate outcomes that we have. So as you can see, the Commission of Higher Education has published several memorandum orders per program, which defines the minimum graduate outcomes that we are expected to have for our graduates in every program. So this is just an example. Now, what we do as an institution is we also come up with our program outcomes aligned to those graduate outcomes. So we have to make sure that our program outcomes contains knowledge, skills, and values to holistically hone our students in their chosen fields. After that, the program outcomes are then mapped to the different courses in our institution, wherein we map out each course to every program outcome that it is related. But we add an additional indicator. Is that course an introductory course, an enabling course, or a demonstrative course? No? So when we say introductory, these are the foundational concepts. So typically, these are the subjects or the courses that wherein they really need to learn independently, even without the use of AI perhaps. No? Then enabling, of course, will be supporting or reinforcing these concepts. And demonstrative is to really show, given that they already mastered the foundations, they will be able to create something. So we have to define which subjects are introductory, enabling, and demonstrative. Then, for each course, we also have our per course outcomes, which is also based on the knowledge, skills, and values, and maps it out to our program outcomes, also based on our curriculum map. No? So we have to make sure that all knowledge, skills, and values are embedded in our outcomes, so that they will just not learn the knowledge. They should also learn how to do things and to develop those skills, while also embedding the values. Especially, we have this what we call the Biniljan expressions, wherein there is a value system that we implement institution-wide. And then, of course, from the syllabus, we have our learning plans, wherein for each topic that we have, we also have learning outcomes that is very specific to that particular topic. No? So, in this case, we will now already identify the learning and teaching activities, as well as the assessments that we will need for our course. Then, also map it out with the learning outcomes, also determining if it is introductory, enabling, or demonstrative. So that's how we do things in our institution, at least for our IT programs. Now, when we got the interviews from our program chairpersons of the different IT programs as well as students, these were the themes that we were able to capture from the responses. The first one would be the embodied experience of AI in learning, where the students, or how the students and faculty personally engage with AI in education. So the key insights here would be students normally see AI as their ever-present tutor, providing them help without judgment, and it helps them simplify difficult topics and saves time on their research. Whereas the faculty views it as a useful educational tool, but it's not always necessary. No? So it helps them in data analysis, it helps them in student engagement. No? So the acceptance of AI is well known, but we also set limitations for this one. No? And then another thing that we identified is the use of AI as a cognitive extension, wherein it functions as an external thinking partner, extending their cognitive abilities. For students, they rely on AI to simplify complex topics and speed up their learning, so that's very useful for them. Faculty also acknowledged the AI's potential to enhance creativity, but they wanted to emphasize that there should always be a human input. You cannot just tell ChatGPT to generate me an image, blah, blah, blah. So there should always be an input coming from the student. What are the parameters that you would like to generate it with? And help them build their prompts so that they will get the desired output based on the thinking of the student themselves. Also, AI allows the student to focus on deeper learning instead of just basic research. No? And then there's another theme. So this one, there is a struggle between human and AI interaction wherein students find AI helpful, but sometimes when they use ChatGPT, they find the answers vague or unhelpful. And sometimes the students themselves find GPTs like ChatGPT or Copilot hallucinating at times. And they actually recognize that. Faculty also believe that AI requires proper training and structured guidelines. So we cannot just use AI without proper training on, like for example, how to do prompt engineering and so on. So the student response says that if I don't phrase my prompt correctly, AI gives me vague or useless answers. So that's one of our students' responses. And the faculty says that they require hands-on AI training to use it effectively. Another thing is the tension between learning and dependency. So both our students and faculty have identified that there is a paradox in AI to enhance learning and risking the over-reliance. So we wanted to avoid over-reliance and over-dependency in AI. So the students did admit that using AI, they might use AI instead of thinking critically, so they have admitted that. Faculty also worry that AI might hinder students' foundational skills. No? So, yeah, especially for our case, because we have programming subjects, coding subjects, those students, some of them are actually using AI to generate solutions to our machine problems. No? So, some of them have admitted it, and some of our faculty have seen it, including myself. I've seen some of my students doing that, and I reprimand them, no, you don't have to use AI, you have to do it on your own. Also, students also says that AI sometimes makes them lazy, replacing thinking with instant answers, which is true. No? And then another is AI, another thing is AI being a double-edged sword in education, which is also true. It's both an empowerment tool and a source of ethical concerns. No? So for the faculty, so AI misinformation can confuse the students, especially if the tool is already hallucinating. No? There are a lot of questions or a lot of instances wherein we see AI generating false answers that it seems like it's the right answer, but it's not if you try to dig deeper. And the students notice that most examples or most of the outputs that AI generates are mostly Western, which lacks cultural diversity. So there is actually a race, or there is actually a concern about the ethical use of AI, especially in research. Then of course, we have the ethical consciousness and data awareness. No? So in addition to the use of AI, our faculty and students are also aware about the ethics of using it, the data privacy, and the responsible use. No? Our students themselves actually worry about the data privacy and the transparency of AI. They are actually worried that they might be sharing information that they don't want others, they don't want to disclose to just anyone. So they are actually aware of that. And our faculty also emphasizes that there is a need for ethical AI policies, hence our AI use policy. Okay, so transparency and accountability are key, no? According to our faculty. They are key to our AI policies, and students really are worried about how much data they are actually sharing with the world. And of course, another theme is that AI as a complement and not a replacement for educators. So we really wanted to say here that no, AI will not be replacing your professors. They are just complementary to how your teacher teaches the courses. No? So students see AI as a support tool and not a substitute for teachers. At least they acknowledge that. No? And our faculty also stresses the importance of human interaction in learning. No? So it should not replace the thinking, but instead enhance their learning. And students really still like their teachers. In fact, during the pandemic, when we went fully online, and then they came back after the pandemic, they really appreciated the face-to-face classes because they can actually finally interact with their teachers and not just between the screens. Okay, so with that, so given those themes and given the framework, the OBE, or outcomes-based education framework that we are currently following, so we designed some evaluation criteria. When do we use a particular level of AI depending on various evaluation criteria? No? So just to summarize this evaluation criteria, for knowledge, skills, and values, I find that if the topic or the course needs to be learned independently because it is a foundational course, you really need to memorize certain things, you really need to learn the skills, and AI will hinder or will hinder the capability of the student to learn that knowledge, skill, or value, then use no AI. So we'll have to tell the students that okay, AI is not is prohibited. If you are caught using AI, then it will be subject for academic dishonesty. Okay, but sometimes the student may need to use AI-assisted guidance. For example, a programming problem. No? So yes, the programming problem, they are given a set of machine problems wherein they have to develop certain things. But of course, they have to have the codes corrected. Now, similar to grammar checkers. No? So maybe you can have limited AI, but you limit yourselves to the use of such AI-assisted tools only. No? And then for significant and full AI, this means that you can actually use AI to ChatGPT or to do the Copilot, but of course you have to declare what are the prompts that you use and what sites or what tools you also use. No? Then of course, under the course learning outcome, so based on our curriculum map, if the course is introductory or if the course is maybe in enabling, then maybe you can either use no AI or limited AI. But maybe for some enabling subjects and mostly demonstrative subjects, then you can either use significant or full AI. So they just have to look into their curriculum maps. Then for the teaching and learning activities, as long as the activity needs to be learned independently, because this is a new concept. If they use AI right away, they will not learn, they will not be able to internalize it, then use no AI. But if the topic is really more on needing AI assistance, or maybe it's something that you can master and you can just feed to the GPT, then you can use the higher levels. No? So depending on the nature of the activity, then they can choose which level that they want to use. Same with assessments. Okay, so for the assessments, as long as the assessments are introductory or demonstrative, then they use the same criteria. And lastly, for the AI usage or the ethical usage, you have to declare if you're using AI tools or ChatGPT. Okay, so with that, the next steps is to validate the framework and to fine-tune as necessary. So I hope that we will be able to implement this institutionally across the entire institution. With that, thank you very much.
Good, thank you very much. Time for one question. Yes, please. Behind the summer.
Thank you, Jacob, for an invigorating presentation, better than my kappa. I just have one question. I see you have this passing of introductory for a course, then another course for enabling, then another course for demonstrative. I was wondering why can't we just incorporate these 3 steps into one course, but for that particular course we focus on one or fewer skills? Because if we do it that way, students will go back home after a semester with a real life skill. They can do something, right? But if we do it in your way, namely maybe they get the demonstrative level stuff by 3rd year, they have to really trust in you, believe in you that, yeah, in a few years I can do this. What is the pro of doing it that way?
Okay. For the, at least, I would like to speak about it from the perspective of IT subjects or the IT education perspective. No, when we talk about introductory, we define it as they are just learning main concepts. Although, yeah, I think you're right. No, there are certain things that are demonstrative at the beginning. No, so well. That is subject for fine-tuning, of course. If we see things like, there are also some subjects in the IT field that already requires a demonstrative way of outcomes. No? So yes, we can make fine adjustments, but this one is based on what we saw in our curriculum maps when we did that analysis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We're going to have to move on.